transitioning their students from 1975, years 11 and 12 were co-ed, and they're transitioning the whole school to become co-ed. That'll be completed by 2022. Morning to you, Phillip. Thanks for your time.
Morning, Jen.
And I don't want to get a fight between you and Shaw, but let's start off with why Barker decided to expand its co-education.
Well, it was a long and considered process, as you could imagine. But the decision really rested on the decision that was made in the mid-70s that senior co-ed at Barker was the way forward, emulating what was going on around numbers of schools around the world, which invited girls into their upper schools. And the data set around the impact of that experience on the lives of the students, both here and in other schools that had made that decision in the 70s, was so compelling. So compelling. I got a group in called Circle Research to investigate what had been the impact across the over 40 years since that decision was made on the lives of the students who had been through this school system. And the compelling finding, pretty much universally expressed, no matter whether they were still in Sydney or beyond, whether they were parents or grandparents or themselves had children in the school, this one message came out: great preparation for life. Great preparation for life, surpassing, if you will, the narrow band of whether in an ATAR sense or in the strict sense of an HSC performance or whatever Year 12 measure around the world is used. A great preparation for life was seen as the compelling reason. We thought a lot about that, talked to a lot of people, considered a lot of data sets from around the world, and that was the compelling reason. We were persuaded that this was a great preparation for life. It could be even better.
So what changes have you seen at the school since you've brought in girls, essentially? What changes have you seen?
I think there's been a lot more diversity in the classroom. There's been a lot more diversity of activities. And the co-curricular life has blossomed. And more recently, since we've been steadily and I think patiently adding additional classes through the school, there's been a growing excitement and passion about what it is to belong in this community where boys and girls are together.
I mentioned to Tim the idea that having boys and girls in the same classroom, well, one, the boys get to see that girls can be high achievers, as the girls can see that boys are high achievers, but that they benefit from both being there rather than just having one. So my question is, why had single-sex schools, why is it sort of more dominant in Sydney, in New South Wales, than other parts of the country?
It's a really interesting question, this, because if you observe the situation, say, through China or through into Europe, and the notable case of Finland, to which all eyes turn when we look at academic results, most of the schools are co-educational. It tends not to be as live a question in those settings as it is here. So what's going on in Sydney and in other parts of Australia around our comparative conservatism in this space? It's a really interesting question. It probably speaks to more issues that surpass just the narrow range of educational questions. It's more to do with how we want to see ourselves as a culture and as a community. Even around me, most of the schools are single-sex, whether they're government or independent or Catholic schools, most of them are single-sex. And most of them, therefore, once they've established a tradition, hold fast to that tradition.
Change is difficult, isn't it? It's hard to bring that in.
Tell me about it. But it's really about privileging, if you will, tradition and heritage over considerations of progression and modernity. And if you cast the debate in that language, that's somewhat more helpful for how you understand what's going on. In other words, how could I oppose single-sex education when Barker was doing that for a very long time? And yet, on our very first day up in Currajong in 1890, there were 4 girls present amongst the 17 boys.
Right, so from the beginning there were girls.
Right, from the beginning. And when the school moved down to this location in 1895, the girls remained in Currajong, and it became a boys' school from 1895 to 1975. These are important and complex questions about the kinds of experiences and the cultural identity that you want to celebrate inside a school. I fully understand any regret that might be that things change, and I've experienced some of that here. Some folk have been disappointed about the move, though that's comparatively speaking a minority view. The majority of people, overwhelmingly, and as the hour comes closer for the admission of over 100 girls in Year 7 next year, there's a palpable excitement, which obviously is terrific to see.
Phillip Heath is with us, is principal at Barker College. So did you see an increase in enrolments, or did some people choose to take their boys out? What's been the outcome?
Well, as I say, I'd love to live in the land of rainbow and unicorns where everybody agrees with me all the time. That'd be a charming thought. But inevitably, there would be some people who were disappointed. There were some folk who felt that they had made application to join the school and the school was changing and they would change their minds. And I respect that. Choice is a very important thing for families, and it's great that we live in a city where choices are available. Against that, though, that there would be less than a handful of those circumstances, and the increase in inquiries for boys and for girl places, notably, interestingly, for boys places, has been really very overwhelming. Mm-hmm. I can't find a better word for that, overwhelming.
So the transition is completed in 2022. They're all sort of coming in. Yeah. Thank you so much for updating us this morning. The context of it, being Randwick boys did consider going co-ed, but it's been knocked back. So it's interesting to hear from a school that has been taking that time to transition. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks a lot.
Phillip Heath, the principal at Barker College.